Hello there. This is part 2 of a two-part series examining the relationship between disability in our world and disability in Star Wars. In part 1, I covered the disability rights movement from the late 1960s through the 2000s, and the Star Wars content that was released during this time, including the original and prequel trilogies as well as the Clone Wars TV show. Here in this second video, I will discuss the disability rights movement from the 2010s to today, and the Star Wars content that has been released during this time. I will also look at the neurodiversity movement and its impacts on Star Wars. In the 2010s, the disability corner of the internet continued to expand and became a place for disabled people to find community, share their perspectives, educate non-disabled people, and continue their activism. This greater awareness of disabled perspectives shows in Star Wars content from the 2010s. In the Rebels TV show, we go on one of the most in-depth disabled journeys that Star Wars has ever had with Kanan Jarrus. Losing his eyesight in a battle with Maul, we are given a special opportunity to spend not a movie or two with the character, but 2 more seasons of the show. This format allowed the audience to go on Kanan's long journey of acceptance with him. We watch the moment happen and experience his pain. We follow him as he has to grieve the loss of his eyesight and learn to deal with his new impairment. We watch as he goes from hiding his impairment to embracing it, and then feeling comfortable allowing everyone to see his scars. This is the journey that many of us go on, whether we are born with our impairments or we acquire them later in life. It is a journey that takes time, and that aspect is depicted in Kanan's story. Here, the show never frames Kanan as less than human or less than he was before. He's the same Kanan everyone knew and loved, and the characters around him support him as he tries to remember this fact for himself. As the audience, we are made to understand that while Kanan has a vision impairment, he's not defined by it. His life is still just as valuable, and his life can still be just as fulfilling as it has always been. These are important lessons that our entire society needs to learn about disability.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind!
In Rogue One, we are introduced to another blind character, Chirrut Îmwe. We meet this character at a different place in his disability journey. He has long embraced his disability, and it is immediately clear to the audience that his impairment does not mean he is a weaker link to the team. In fact, Chirrut may be the most powerful member of the team, which raises the question, is he a Super Crip? A common trope in media, Super Crips are characters who either become more powerful because of their disabilities, or overcome their disabilities to reach incredible heights. Both framings are problematic from the perspective of the social model of disability. Disabilities are not superpowers. They are limitations placed on an individual by the society around them because their body functions differently than an idealized normal. And the idea that we can overcome our bodies to fit within society standards is dangerous. Disabled bodies can require more care and attention. We can do a lot of damage if we attempt to ignore our body's needs just to fit in with the world around us. We should not push our bodies to their breaking points to achieve anything. Rather, we should work with our bodies to give them what they need. Doing so doesn't take away from any other aspect of life. So, is Chirrut a Super Crip? I think it remains up for debate, but I'd like to say no. His power levels are comparable to other Force users in Star Wars. He is not treated as being powerful because of his blindness, nor is he framed as having overcome his disability. From my perspective, he seems to be working with it to accomplish his goals, and not cause unnecessary strain for his body. What might be problematic, however, is that he is subsequently killed off after only just having been introduced. You may have noticed that nearly every character I have discussed so far has been killed off. Granted, in war, a lot of people die all the time, especially in Rogue One. But it seems like disabled characters are particularly killable. Unfortunately, in society and in media, we are shown that because people with disabilities are somehow damaged, their lives are worth less, and they become easier to sacrifice. It should be clear by now that the lives of people with disabilities are not actually worth less. In our world and in our stories, we should be given the chance to live the same lives as anybody else. We should not be sacrificed just because we are not fully organically human, or we may have shorter lifespans. Our time on this earth is just as precious as the time anyone else spends here. The Clone Wars, Rebels, and Rogue One made notable progress in the representations of disability, but the sequels were going to have to revisit some of those older characters who came from a different era of disability representation. By the time the sequels were released, Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker had spent decades as iconic and beloved characters by a large audience, and their disabilities became wrapped up in that. Luke's prosthetic hand became an iconic symbol of the character. Prosthetic hands became a symbol of the Skywalker family. Kylo Ren also idolizes Darth Vader to the point of wearing a mask inspired by Vader's. While Vader's mask used to be a symbol of his disability and his inhumanity, it's now a revered symbol for Kylo Ren, and also for the audience. While the hand and the mask originally had negative connotations, their meanings evolved with time and are now taken positively. The sequel trilogy did not introduce any new main characters with disabilities, which is odd given how central disability has been to the story before. But this shouldn't take away from the new, positive framing of old disabilities that this trilogy did give us. Following the release of the sequels, we did get a new disabled character in The Mandalorian. As you may have noticed by now, all of the characters I have discussed up until this point have been men. Star Wars hasn't done too bad on the race front, but Fennec Shand is the first disabled woman we've gotten. And even better, she's a woman of color. Despite all of the sci-fi, this is a character that real people, especially women with disabilities, can see themselves reflected in. Fennec Shand is a continuation of that good representation from the previous TV shows. She's a regular person, she doesn't represent the good guys or the bad guys. She's just going through life and all of a sudden she finds herself disabled. This is a relatable experience for many people with disabilities. She also represents a section of people who have invisible disabilities. There are many people in this world who have disabilities that are not immediately noticeable, even some who have metal inside their body, as Fennec does. But after all of what she goes through, she continues to be a person first. She is still morally gray like real people, and she continues to be totally awesome. So far, I have primarily focused on physical disabilities. These are what I understand the best as a result of my own experience as a disabled person. And it's also what the disability rights movement focused on. But there are many more kinds of conditions that fall into the Disability Coalition, even if they don't necessarily go by that name. The neurodivergent movement is one of those. This movement was started by Judy Singer, an autistic, in 1998, and it grew through the 2000s. The movement has sought to gain rights and social acceptance for neurodivergent people. The term neurodivergent describes individuals with developmental neurological disorders like ADHD, autism, depression, or dyslexia, though the movement rejects the idea that these are actually disorders. Rather, they are framed as natural variations in how brains work. In the 2010s and 2020s, the internet has also helped neurodivergent people share their ideas and experiences. The movement is still gaining attention and understanding, and of course, it's influencing Star Wars.
So why haven't I heard of this squad? Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with, desirable mutations. 99, eh? Huh, nice touch. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
Cavalry has arrived!
Star Wars' journey with disability, and now neurodiversity, has culminated in what I believe is one of the greatest disabled shows to date, The Bad Batch. This show takes everything that was good about previous portrayals of disability and takes it even further. The entire main cast is explicitly disabled, and their disabilities cover a wide spectrum. We still have the character missing an arm and the character missing an eye, but what the Bad Batch are mainly identified for is their neurodivergence. Since all of the neurotypical clones were programmed to be loyal and follow orders, the Bad Batch's tendency to utilize unusual tactics and out-of-the-box thinking as a result of their imperfect genetics makes them all neurodivergent. They're described as defective and deviant by those around them. They're even given aptitude tests by Tarkin, who also literally uses shock therapy on Crosshair to try to cure his neurodiversity, which historically has been used on real people for the same reason. Aside from the Bad Batch's general deviance, Tech is perhaps the most obviously neurodivergent member, and many people in the autistic community have found him relatable. It's so important that neurodivergent people see themselves represented on screen in a positive way, and it's great to have a character like Tech who is a main character and an important part of his team that real people can relate to. For me, Echo was the first disabled character that I saw myself in. Which is odd given that he is a spaceman who was blown up at a citadel, kidnapped by separatists, and forced to become a supercomputer to fight a war against his brothers. But when you strip away the sci-fi, Echo's story is that of a regular person whose life completely changed one day in a traumatic event, who came out a different person because of it, who had to find a new place in the universe because his new body no longer fit in old spaces. And I too have a tendency to repeat instructions back to people. Echo's appearance, or symptoms, also aren't that unusual. Real people can also lose their limbs or lose their hair when they become disabled. They can also become skinnier or paler as a side effect. I've experienced some of these myself. For people with disabilities and for people who have little or no experience with disability, spending years with Echo as an able-bodied clone to then watch him go on his own disabled journey is significant. It helps all of us to understand that people with disabilities are still people. Echo is still Echo, even if his body looks different. It helps keep this through line of humanity that we can learn to apply to real disabled people. It is also worth drawing attention to an old line brought up with Echo.
You are more machine than man. Percentage-wise, at least.
Lucky me.
This time around, this line has no bad connotation attached to it. Tech is simply stating a fact, and from seeing Echo's reaction, we get the idea that he is in a different place with his disability than the other members. The original Bad Batch members were born disabled. They grew up facing ridicule, discrimination, and criticism from others, so they have had a long time to work through their disabilities, find their own self-worth, and fully accept and embrace what makes them different. Echo, on the other hand, has only recently acquired his disability. He's still working through his feelings about his new body, and we can see the discomfort in his reaction to this line. The beauty of the Bad Batch is that it portrays a Crip family helping and supporting each other. It is so much easier to accept your disability and even be proud of it when there are other people with disabilities in your life who have already done this. This also helps Omega find pride in her own neurodivergence. And it's clear from their name that the original Clone Force 99 having their own Crip family on Kamino, in each other and in 99, made a huge difference in their lives. 99 wasn't given the opportunity to be who he wanted to be, but he helped Clone Force 99 survive and thrive and go on to become one of the greatest groups of clones the Republic Army had. This has been a crucial element of the disability rights movement. People with disabilities finding solidarity and family in other people with disabilities, even when those disabilities are completely different. This has been deeply important to our humanization and our fight for equality as a community. There is an important metaphor to be found within this show. Every past generation of people with disabilities, the original 99s, have helped move our society forward, and they've helped those of us Bad Batchers alive today to have more opportunities than they had in the past. So it is our job to do the same for future Omegas. We can be Clone Force 99, and we can help make the world better for future generations. If you have not watched The Bad Batch, please do so. This Crip family story is worth watching, and it is especially worth showing children so that they can learn about disability from these characters. And I personally can't wait to see where the story goes.
Watch your
More recently, the Book of Boba Fett also tried to introduce its own Crypt family with the mods. Initially, I was excited to meet a group of characters who so proudly wore their prosthetics, but as we learned more about them, something felt off. I'm not sure that these characters are actually disabled. Disability is, of course, not uniform. Rather, the community is composed of individuals with a vast range of conditions and impairments. These coalitions are united in their common experiences and shared discrimination. When we look back at every character discussed in this video so far, each one was either born with their disability or acquired their disability through an emotional and traumatic experience. No character chose their disability. This is what it's really like to have a disability. This is what brings people together under the disability identity. So when people don't have this shared experience, where do they fall? The mods chose prosthetics as an upgrade and as a fashion statement. To me, this places the mods at the absolute other end of the spectrum, in an ableist camp that believes in a perfectible and ideal human existence to which humans can upgrade to. The mods feel insensitive to the reality in which the show aired. The disability rights movement hasn't ended because people with disabilities are still seen as less than human. It seems strange to show people replacing limbs like it's a tattoo parlor. This raises the question, what should happen to the cyborg trope then? Sci-fi has long been interested in upgrading humans, but as a dystopia, Star Wars has always done cyborgs in a more relatable way that covers the difficult and complicated reality of having to replace a piece of oneself with metal. Perhaps this upgrading cyborg trope should be put on the back burner until people with disabilities have obtained greater equality in our society. Perhaps it should never be brought back to the table because it spreads ableist ideas about an idealized human existence. Regardless, the topic should be more widely discussed in a critical manner, with many disabled perspectives at the forefront of the conversation. So where should Star Wars and disability go next? Unsurprisingly, I believe Star Wars should continue down the path being forged by the Bad Batch. It should continue to tell nuanced disabled stories with diverse casts. There is such a large spectrum of disabilities that there are many more stories out there to be told in this galaxy. Star Wars has a unique opportunity to continue educating an enormous viewership on the subject, young and old alike. In society, we must continue to listen to and learn from people with disabilities and provide this community with the opportunity to tell their own stories. I didn't even get into how none of these characters are portrayed by actors with disabilities. And we must continue to fight for a more accessible and equitable society. The 99s have done so much for us. As Bad Batchers, it's our turn to make society break down more barriers for the Omegas of the world. Thank you for watching the second video examining the relationship between disability in our world and disability in Star Wars. If you're interested in reading more about the things I've discussed here, these are the sources I used for part 2. May the Force be with you.